HM Prison, Reading. Dear Bosie, after long fruitless waiting, I have determined to write to you myself, as much for your sake as for mine, as I would not like to think that I had passed through 2 long years of imprisonment without ever having received a single line from you, or any news, or message even, except such as gave me pain. Our ill-fated and most lamentable friendship has ended in ruin and public infamy for me. Yet the memory of our ancient affection is often with me, and the thought that loathing, bitterness, and contempt should forever take that place in my heart once held by love is very sad to me. After my terrible sentence, when the prison dress was on me and the prison house was closed, I sat amongst the ruins of my wonderful life, crushed by anguish, bewildered with terror, dazed through pain. Every day I said to myself, I must keep love in my heart today, else how should I live through the day? Suffering is one long moment. We cannot divide it by seasons. We can only record its moods and chronicle their return. With us, time itself does not progress. It revolves. It seems to circle around one center of pain. For us in prison, there is only one season, the season of sorrow. The very sun and moon seem taken from us. Outside, the day may be blue and gold, but the light that creeps down through the thickly muffled glass of the small, iron-barred window beneath which one sits is grey and miserly. It is always twilight in one's cell, as it is always twilight in one's heart. And in the sphere of thought, no less than in the sphere of time, motion is no more. The thing that you personally have long ago forgotten, or can easily forget, is happening to me now, and will happen to me again tomorrow. Remember this, and you will be able to understand a little of why I am in this manner writing. Three months after I was transferred here, my mother died. You knew none better how deeply I loved and honored her. Her death was so terrible to me that I, once a lord of language, have no words in which to express my anguish and my shame. She and my father had bequeathed me a name they had made noble and honored, not merely in literature, art, archaeology, and science, but in the public history of my own country, in its evolution as a nation. I had disgraced that name eternally. I had given it to brutes that they might make it brutal, and to fools that they might make it a synonym for folly. What I suffered then, and still suffer, is not for pen to write or paper to record. Messages of sympathy reached me from all who still had affection for me. You alone stood aloof, sent me no message. And wrote me no letter. Your silence has been horrible. Nor has it been a silence of weeks and months merely, but of years. Of years even as they have to count them who, like yourself, live swiftly in happiness and can hardly catch the gilt feet of the days as they dance by, and are out of breath in the chase after pleasure. It is a silence without excuse. By your actions and by your silence, by what you have done and by what you have left undone, you have made every day of my long imprisonment still more difficult for me to live through. The very bread and water of prison fare you have by your conduct changed. You have rendered the one bitter and the other brackish to me. The sorrow you should have shared, you have doubled. The pain you should have sought to lighten, you have quickened to anguish. Other miserable men, when they are thrown into prison, if they are robbed of the beauty of the world, are at least safe in some measure from the world's most deadly slings, most awful arrows. They can hide in the darkness of their cells and of their very disgrace make a mode of sanctuary. With me, it has been different. Sorrow after sorrow has come beating at the prison doors in search of me. They have opened the gates wide and let them in. Hardly, if at all, have my friends been suffered to see me. But my enemies have had full access to me always. Twice at my public appearances at the bankruptcy court, and again in my public transferences from one prison to another, have I been shown under conditions of unspeakable humiliation to the gaze and mockery of men. Bitter and harsh letters come to me from my wife through her solicitor. I am at once taunted and threatened with poverty. My 2 children are taken from me by legal procedure. That is and will always remain to me a source of infinite distress, of infinite pain, of grief without end or limit. That the law should decide that I am one unfit to be with my own children is something quite horrible to me. The disgrace of prison is nothing compared to it. I envy other men who tread the yard with me. I am sure that their children wait for them, look for their coming. Will be sweet to them. The poor are wiser, more charitable, more kind, more sensitive than we are. In their eyes, prison is a tragedy in a man's life, a misfortune, a casualty, something that calls for sympathy in others. They speak of one who is in prison as of one who is in trouble, simply. It is the phrase they always use, and the expression has the perfect wisdom of love in it. With people of our own rank, it is different. With us, prison makes a man a pariah. I, and such as I am, have hardly any right to air and sun. Our presence taints the pleasures of others. We are unwelcome when we reappear. To revisit the glimpses of the moon is not for us. Our very children are taken away. Those lovely links with humanity are broken. We are doomed to be solitary while our sons still live. We are denied the one thing that might heal us and keep us, that might bring balm to the bruised heart and peace to the soul in pain. I was a man who stood in symbolic relation to the art and culture of my age. I had realized this for myself at the very dawn of my manhood, and had forced my age to realize it afterwards. Few men hold such a position in their own lifetime, and have it so acknowledged. It is usually discerned, if discerned at all, by the historian or the critic, long after both the man and his age have passed away. With me, it was different. I felt it myself and made others feel it. Byron was a symbolic figure, but his relations were to the passion of his age and its weariness of passion. My relations were to something more noble, more permanent, of more vital issue, of larger scope. The gods had given me almost everything. I had genius, a distinguished name, high social position, brilliancy, intellectual daring. I made art a philosophy, and philosophy an art. I altered the minds of men and the colors of things. There was nothing I said or did that did not make people wonder. Whatever I touched, I made beautiful, in a new mode of beauty. To truth itself I gave what is false, no less than what is true, its rightful province, and showed that the false and true are merely forms of intellectual existence. I treated art as the supreme reality, and life as a mere mode of fiction. I awoke the imagination of my century so that it created myth and legend around me. I summed up all systems in a phrase, and all existence in an epigram. Along with these things, I let myself be lured into long spells of senseless and sensual ease. I amused myself with being a flaneur, a dandy, a man of fashion. I surrounded myself with the smaller natures and the meaner minds. I became the spendthrift of my own genius, and to waste an eternal youth gave me a curious joy. Tired of being on the heights, I deliberately went to the depths in the search for new sensation. I grew careless of the lives of others. I took pleasure where it pleased me and passed on. I forgot that every little action of the common day makes or unmakes character, and that therefore what one has done in the secret chamber, one has some day to cry aloud on the housetops. I ceased to be lord over myself. I was no longer the captain of my soul and did not know it. I allowed you to dominate me and your father to frighten me. I ended in horrible disgrace. There is only one thing for me now: absolute humility. Just as there is only one thing for you: absolute humility also. You had better come down into the dust and learn it beside me. I have lain in prison for nearly 2 years. Out of my nature has come wild despair, an abandonment to grief that was piteous even to look at, terrible and impotent rage, bitterness and scorn, anguish that wept aloud, misery that could find no voice, sorrow that was dumb. I have passed through every possible mood of suffering. Better than Wordsworth himself, I know what Wordsworth meant when he said, "Suffering is permanent, obscure, and dark, and has the nature of infinity." But while there were times when I rejoiced in the idea that my sufferings were to be endless, I could not bear them to be without meaning. Now I find hidden somewhere away in my nature something that tells me that nothing in the whole world is meaningless, and suffering least of all. That something hidden away in my nature, like a treasure in a field, is humility. There is much more before me. I have hills far steeper to climb, valleys much darker to pass through, and I have to get it all out of myself. Neither religion, morality, nor reason can help me at all. Morality does not help me. I am one of those who are made for exceptions, not for laws. But while I see that there is nothing wrong in what one does, I see that there is something wrong in what one becomes. It is well to have learnt that. Religion does not help me. The faith that others give to what is unseen, I give to what one can touch and look at. My gods dwell in temples made with hands, and within the circle of actual experience is my creed made perfect and complete. Too complete, it may be, for like many or all of those who have placed their heaven in this earth, I have found in it not merely the beauty of heaven, but the horror of hell also. When I think about religion at all, I feel as if I would like to found an order for those who cannot believe. The confraternity of the fatherless, one might call it, where on an altar on which no taper burned, a priest in whose heart peace had no dwelling, might celebrate with unblessed bread and a chalice empty of wine. Everything to be true must become a religion, and agnosticism should have its ritual no less than faith. It has sown its martyrs, it should reap its saints, and praise God daily for having hidden himself from man. But whether it be faith or agnosticism, it must be nothing external to me. Its symbols must be of my own creating. If I may not find its secret within myself, I shall never find it. If I have not got it already, it will never come to me. Reason does not help me. It tells me that the laws under which I am convicted are wrong and unjust laws, and the system under which I have suffered a wrong and unjust system. But somehow I have got to make both of these things just and right to me. And exactly as in art, one is only concerned with what a particular thing is at a particular moment to oneself, so it is also in the ethical evolution of one's character. I have got to make everything that has happened to me good for me. The plank bed, the loathsome food, the hard ropes shredded into oakum till one's fingertips grow dull with pain, the menial offices with which each day begins and finishes, the harsh orders that routine seems to necessitate, the dreadful dress that makes sorrow grotesque to look at, the silence, the solitude, the shame. Each and all of these things I have to transform into a spiritual experience. For just as the body absorbs things of all kinds and converts them into swiftness or strength, into the play of beautiful muscles and the moulding of fair flesh, into the curves and colours of the hair, the lips, the eye, so the soul has its nutritive functions also, and can transform into noble moods of thought what in itself is base, cruel, and degrading. The fact of my having been the common prisoner of a common jail I must frankly accept, and curious as it may seem, One of the things I shall have to teach myself is not to be ashamed of it. I must accept it as a punishment, and if one is ashamed of having been punished, one might just as well never have been punished at all. Of course, there are many things of which I was convicted that I had not done, but then there are many things of which I was convicted that I had done, and a still greater number of things in my life for which I was never indicted at all. And as the gods are strange and punish us for what is good and humane in us, as much as for what is evil and perverse, I must accept the fact that one is punished for the good as well as for the evil that one does. Many men on their release carry their prison about with them into the air, and hide it as a secret disgrace in their hearts, and at length, like poor poisoned things, creep into some hole and die. It is wretched that they should have to do so, and it is wrong of society that it should force them to do so. Society takes upon itself the right to inflict appalling punishment on the individual, but it also has the supreme vice of shallowness and fails to realize what it has done. When the man's punishment is over, society leaves him to himself. That is to say, it abandons him at the very moment when its highest duty towards him begins. It is really ashamed of its own actions and shuns those whom it has punished, as people shun a creditor whose debt they cannot pay, or one on whom they have inflicted an irreparable, an irremediable wrong. I can claim on my side that if I realize what I have suffered, society should realize what it has inflicted on me, and that there should be no bitterness or hate on either side. While I was in Wandsworth Prison, I longed to die. It was my one desire. When after 2 months in the infirmary I was transferred here and found myself growing gradually better in physical health, I was filled with rage. I determined to commit suicide on the very day on which I left prison. After a time, that evil mood passed away, and I made up my mind to live, but to wear gloom as a king wears purple. Never to smile again, to turn whatever house I entered into a house of mourning, to make my friends walk slowly in sadness with me, to teach them that melancholy is the true secret of life, to maim them with an alien sorrow, to mar them with my own pain. Now I feel quite differently. I see it would be both ungrateful and unkind of me to pull so long a face that when my friends came to see me, they would have to make their faces still longer in order to show their sympathy. Or, if I desired to entertain them, to invite them to sit down silently to bitter herbs and funeral baked meats. I must learn how to be cheerful and happy. The last 2 occasions on which I was allowed to see my friends here, I tried to be as cheerful as possible and to show my cheerfulness in order to make them some slight return for their trouble in coming all the way from town to see me. It is only a slight return, I know, but it is the one I feel certain that pleases them most. I saw Robbie for an hour on Saturday, and I tried to give the fullest possible expression of the delight I really felt at our meeting. And that in the views and ideas I am here shaping for myself, I am quite right, is shown to me by the fact that now, for the first time since my imprisonment, I have a real desire for life. I now see that sorrow, being the supreme emotion of which man is capable, is at once the type and test of all great art. Behind joy and laughter there may be a temperament, coarse, hard, and callous, but behind sorrow there is always sorrow. Pain, unlike pleasure, wears no mask. Truth in art is not any correspondence between the essential idea and the accidental existence. It is not the resemblance of shape to shadow, or of the form mirrored in the crystal to the form itself. It is no echo coming from a hollow hill, any more than it is a silver well of water in the valley that shows the moon to the moon and Narcissus to Narcissus. Truth in art is the unity of a thing with itself, the outward rendered expressive of the inward. There are times when sorrow seems to me to be the only truth. Other things may be illusions of the eye or the appetite, made to blind the one and cloy the other. But out of sorrow have the worlds been built. And at the birth of a child or a star, there is pain. I have said of myself that I was one who stood in symbolic relation to the art and culture of my age. There is not a single wretched man in this wretched place along with me who does not stand in symbolic relation to the very secret of life. For the secret of life is suffering. It is what is hidden behind everything. When we begin to live, what is sweet is so sweet to us, and what is bitter so bitter, that we inevitably direct all our desires towards pleasures, and seek not merely for a month or twain to feed on honeycomb, but for all our years to taste no other food, ignorant all the while that we may really be starving the soul. Now it seems to me that love of some kind is the only possible explanation of the extraordinary amount of suffering that there is in the world. I cannot conceive of any other explanation. I am convinced that there is no other, and that if the world has indeed, as I have said, been built of sorrow, it has been built by the hands of love, because in no other way could the soul of man, for whom the world was made, reach the full stature of its perfection. For the last 7 or 8 months, in spite of a succession of great troubles reaching me from the outside world, almost without intermission, I have been placed in direct contact with a new spirit working in this prison through men and things that has helped me beyond any possibility of expression in words. So that while for the first year of my imprisonment I did nothing else and can remember doing nothing else but wring my hands in impotent despair and say, "What an ending! What an appalling ending!" Now I try to say to myself, and sometimes when I'm not torturing myself, do really and sincerely say, "What a beginning! What a wonderful beginning!" It may really be so. It may become so. Perhaps there may come into my art also, no less than into my life, a still deeper note, one of greater unity of passion and directness of impulse. Not width, but intensity is the true aim of modern art. We are no longer in art concerned with the type. It is with the exception that we have to do. I cannot put my sufferings into any form they took, I need hardly say. Art only begins where imitation ends, but something must come into my work, of fuller memory of words, perhaps, of richer cadences, of more curious effects, of simpler architectural order, of some aesthetic quality at any rate. You can realize when I tell you that had I been released last May, as I tried to be, I would have left this place loathing it and every official in it with a bitterness of hatred that would have poisoned my life. I have had a year longer of imprisonment, but humanity has been in the prison along with us all. And now, when I go out, I shall always remember great kindnesses that I have received here from almost everybody. And on the day of my release, I shall give many thanks to many people and ask to be remembered by them in turn. The prison system is absolutely and entirely wrong. I would give anything to be able to alter it when I go out. I intend to try. But there is nothing in the world so wrong but that the spirit of humanity, which is the spirit of love, the spirit of the Christ who is not in churches, may make it, if not right, at least possible to be born without too much bitterness of heart. Everything about my tragedy has been hideous, mean, repellent, lacking in style. Our very dress makes us grotesque. We are the zanies of sorrow. We are clowns whose hearts are broken. We are specially designed to appeal to the sense of humor. On November the 13th, 1895, I was brought down here from London. From 2 o'clock till 2:30 on that day, I had to stand on the centre platform of Clapham Junction in convict dress and handcuffed for the world to look at. I had been taken out of the hospital ward without a moment's notice being given to me. Of all possible objects, I was the most grotesque. When people saw me, they laughed. Each train as it came up swelled the audience. Nothing could exceed their amusement. That was, of course, before they knew who I was. As soon as they had been informed, they laughed still more. For half an hour I stood there in the grey November rain, surrounded by a jeering mob. For a year after that was done to me, I wept every day at the same hour and for the same space of time. That is not such a tragic thing as possibly it sounds to you. To those who are in prison, tears are a part of every day's experience. A day in prison on which one does not weep is a day on which one's heart is hard, not a day on which one's heart is happy. Well, now I am really beginning to feel more regret for the people who laughed than for myself. Of course, when they saw me, I was not on my pedestal. I was in the pillory. But it is a very unimaginative nature that only cares for people on their pedestals. A pedestal may be a very unreal thing. A pillory is a terrific reality. They should have known also how to interpret sorrow better. I have said that behind sorrow there is always sorrow. It were wiser still to say that behind sorrow there is always a soul. And to mock at a soul in pain is a dreadful thing. In the strangely simple economy of the world, people only get what they give. And to those who have not enough imagination to penetrate the mere outward of things and feel pity, what pity can be given save that of scorn? I have told you this account of the mode of my being conveyed here, simply that you should realize how hard it has been for me to get anything out of my punishment but bitterness and despair. I have, however, to do it, and now and then I have moments of submission and acceptance. All the spring may be hidden in the single bud, and the low ground nest of the lark may hold the joy that is to herald the feet of many rose-red dawns. And so perhaps whatever beauty of life still remains to me is contained in some moment of surrender, abasement, and humiliation. I can, at any rate, merely proceed on the lines of my own development, and accepting all that has happened to me, make myself worthy of it. People used to say of me that I was too individualistic. I must be far more of an individualist than ever I was. I must get far more out of myself than ever I got, and ask far less of the world than ever I asked. Indeed, my ruin came not from too great individualism of life, but from too little. The one disgraceful, unpardonable, and to all time contemptible action of my life was my allowing myself to appeal to society for help and protection against your father. To have made such an appeal against anyone would have been, from the individualist point of view, bad enough. But what excuse can there ever be put forward for having made it against one of such nature and aspect? I have now written, and at great length, to you, in order that you should realize what you were to me before my imprisonment, during those 3 years' fatal friendship, what you have been to me during my imprisonment, already within 2 moons of its completion almost, and what I hope to be myself and to others when my imprisonment is over. At the end of it all, I have got to forgive you. I must do so. I don't write this letter to put bitterness into your heart, but to pluck it out of mine. For my own sake, I must forgive you. One cannot always keep an adder in one's breast to feed on one, nor rise up every night to sow thorns in the garden of one's soul. Whatever you did to me in the old days, I always readily forgave. It did you no good then. Only one whose life is without stain of any kind can forgive sins. But now, when I sit in humiliation and disgrace, it is different. My forgiveness should mean a great deal to you now. Someday you will realize it. Whether you do so early or late, soon or not at all, my way is clear before me. I cannot allow you to go through life bearing in your heart the burden of having ruined a man like me. The thought might make you callously indifferent or morbidly sad. I must take the burden from you and put it on my own shoulders. I cannot reconstruct my letter or rewrite it. You must take it as it stands, blotted in many places with tears, in some with signs of passion or pain, and make it out as best you can, blots, corrections and all. Language requires to be tuned like a violin, and just as too many or too few vibrations in the voice of the singer or the trembling of the string will make the note false, so too much or too little in words will spoil the message. As it stands, at any rate, my letter has its definite meaning behind every phrase. There is nothing in it of rhetoric. Wherever there is erasion or substitution, however slight, however elaborate, it is because I am seeking to render my real impression, to find for my mood its exact equivalent. Whatever is first in feeling comes always last in form. I am to be released, if all goes well with me, towards the end of May, and hope to go at once to some little seaside village abroad with Robbie. I have a strange longing for the great, simple, primeval things, such as the sea, to me no less of a mother than the earth. It seems to me that we all look at nature too much and live with her too little. I discern great sanity in the Greek attitude. They never chatted about sunsets or discussed whether the shadows on the grass were really mauve or not. But they saw that the sea was for the swimmer, and the sand for the feet of the runner. They loved the trees for the shadow that they cast, and the forest for its silence at noon. The vineyard dresser wreathed his hair with ivy, that he might keep off the rays of the sun as he stooped over the young shoots. And for the artist and the athlete, the two types that Greece gave us, they plaited with garlands the leaves of the bitter laurel and of the wild parsley, which else had been of no service to man. We call ours a utilitarian age, and we do not know the uses of any single thing. We have forgotten that water can cleanse and fire purify, and that the earth is mother to us all. As a consequence, our art is of the moon and plays with shadows, while Greek art is of the sun and deals directly with things. I feel sure that in elemental forces there is purification, and I want to go back to them and live in their presence. I tremble with pleasure when I think that on the very day of my leaving prison, both the laburnum and the lilac will be blooming in the gardens, and that I shall see the wind stir into restless beauty the swaying gold of the one, and make the other toss the pale purple of its plumes, so that all the air shall be Arabia for me. Linnaeus fell on his knees and wept for joy when he saw for the first time the long heath of some English upland made yellow with the tawny aromatic brooms of the common firs. And I know that for me, to whom flowers are part of desire, there are tears waiting in the petals of some rose. Still, I am conscious now that behind all this beauty, satisfying though it may be, there is some spirit hidden of which the painted forms and shapes are but modes of manifestation. And it is with this spirit that I desire to become in harmony. I have grown tired of the articulate utterances of men and things, the mystical in art, the mystical in life, the mystical in nature. This is what I am looking for. It is absolutely necessary for me to find it somewhere. All trials are trials for one's life, just as all sentences are sentences of death. And 3 times have I been tried. The first time I left the box to be arrested, the second time to be led back to the house of detention, the third time to pass into a prison for 2 years. Society, as we have constituted it, will have no place for me, has none to offer. But nature, whose sweet rains fall on unjust and just alike, will have clefts in the rocks where I may hide, and secret valleys in whose silence I may weep undisturbed. She will hang the night with stars, so that I may walk abroad in the darkness without stumbling, and send the wind over my footprints, so that none may track me to my hurt. She will cleanse me in great waters, and with bitter herbs make me whole. At the end of a month, when the June roses are in all their wanton opulence, I will, if I feel able, arrange through Robbie to meet you in some quiet foreign town like Bruges, whose grey houses and green canals and cool, still ways had a charm for me years ago. I hope that our meeting will be what a meeting between you and me should be, after everything that has occurred. There is a wider chasm between us now, the chasm of sorrow. But to humility there is nothing that is impossible, and to love all things are easy. As regards your letter to me in answer to this, it may be as long or as short as you choose. Address the envelope simply to the Governor, H.M. Prison, Reading. Inside, in another and an open envelope, place your letter to me. If your paper is very thin, do not write on both sides, as it makes it hard for others to read. For yourself, I have but this last thing to say. Do not be afraid of the past. If people tell you that it is irrevocable, do not believe them. The past, the present, and the future are but one moment in the sight of God, in whose sight we should try to live. Time and space, succession and extension are merely accidental conditions of thought. The imagination can transcend them and move in a free sphere of ideal existence. Things also are in their essence what we choose to make them. What lies before me is my past. I have got to make myself look on that with different eyes, to make God look on it with different eyes. This I cannot do by ignoring it, or slighting it, or praising it, or denying it. It is only to be done by fully accepting it as an inevitable part of the evolution of my life and character, by bowing my head to everything I have suffered. You came to me to learn the pleasure of life and the pleasure of art. Perhaps I am chosen to teach you something much more wonderful, the meaning of sorrow and its beauty. Your affectionate friend, Oscar Wilde.
Stephen Rea reading Oscar Wilde's letter De Profundis on location here in Reading Jail. Wilde finished his letter very shortly before he completed his sentence. His health was broken, his mental health very fragile. When he left the prison, he travelled to France, where, as planned, he met his friend Robbie Ross and handed over the manuscript of the letter. A copy was sent to Bosie, although Bosie claimed that he never read it in Wilde's lifetime. As for Oscar, he never returned to this country. He never saw his children or his wife again, and he died 3 years after leaving Reading at the age of 46.